Hát và rap như chơi, anh em ai cũng bảo là siêu nha. Flow của tôi đầy bụi, rác ở dưới sân nhà vẫn y nguyên. Thay vì tát thì tôi miền liền rap và ô nhiễm khí quyển. Watch me whip whip vào những đứa xả rác. Watch me nay nay khỏi môi trường tệ. Luật nhân quả luôn luôn thỏa đáng. Kiếp này phá môi trường, kiếp sau mãi bị ế. Nghe lời tôi đi ai ra bằng chất trời, sống văn minh như bến Tây. Rapping last fight bắn vẫn như AK-47. Hãy trồng nhiều cây cây, nhớ là bỏ túi ni lông khi mà không cần thiết. Như drama thừa thãi, hoàng long không cần tiếc. Bỏ chuối vào bên hữu cơ, bỏ nhựa vào thùng tái chế. Gọi tôi là anh hùng cái thế. Baby girl cho anh hỏi em đang đi đâu đấy. Nếu em mà nhìn thấy rác thì hãy nhặt giúp anh đi ok. Từng này ô nhiễm là đủ rồi, dân trên sao đỡ nổi. Hít một lít thủy ngân, phổi của anh chắc vỡ thôi. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Đẹp trai khẳng khái không để ô nhiễm sống chung. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Ai sẽ vứt yêu sẽ rác. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Vứt rác vào trong thùng, vứt rác vào trong thùng. Ai sẽ vứt yêu sẽ rác. Vứt rác vào trong thùng,
ở đây nguồn điện down và đằng kia nguồn nước out. Về môi trường cứu làm sao? Ok anh em đến đây mình cùng đàm đạo yeah. Rác trong chất là không tốt. Ông tha rác là ông bớt. Ông người trash nó không trust. There's one fact you can know that.
Yeah. Anh là yeah.
Let me back up real quick and tell you one of the many reasons why I love Viet trap.
Yeah.
Because Vietnamese is a tonal language. What does that mean? CA can be ga, 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 all different words. Ga. Ga is fish. Ga is scrub. Ga is tomato. All different words, and people are rapping in Vietnamese. I find that amazing.
Anh là dân chơi thôn, yeah. Anh là dân chơi thôn, đóng một bút chỉ phách, yeah, trông hơi ngon. Chơi như trong khuôn phép, tuyệt đối không chơi hơn. Về nhà thì sợ ba mẹ chứ vẫn là dân chơi thôn, yeah. Anh là dân chơi thôn, đóng một bút chỉ phách, yeah, trông hơi ngon. Chơi như trong khuôn phép, tuyệt đối không chơi hơn. Về nhà thì sợ ba mẹ chứ vẫn là dân chơi thôn, yeah. Chào buổi sáng bằng bát cháo lòng. Kia có em hàng xóm đi tông thái khoác áo hồng. Đêm qua có ông thần tài, ông về ông báo mộng. Gái làm mấy đứa cả 10 gọi anh là lão công. Xách xe lượn một vòng quanh làng quanh xóm. Em sơ sọt thật xinh đi rồi anh sang anh đón. Nói nghe bây giờ là em thích ai cơ. Khi em đang được anh đeo chỉ còn exciter. Không có nhiều chuyện nhưng anh có điều kiện. Anh thường thể hiện nhưng không để lại được tiếng. Chẳng cần phải nói nhiều chỉ cần nhìn cách anh tiêu tiền. Anh lướt qua một phát đến hoa khối xóm năn nỉ phải yêu liền. Tối ra khúc mít chủ trì đại hội võ lâm. Bàn tin thời sự đến chuyện con rắn có chân. Hút chung nhau điếu thuốc mừng ông Trump đắc cử. Khuyên anh em một câu chân thành và có làm mới có ăn nhé. Anh là dân chơi thôn, đóng một bút chỉ phách, yeah, trông hơi ngon. Chơi như trong khuôn phép, tuyệt đối không chơi hơn. Về nhà thì sợ ba mẹ chứ vẫn là dân chơi thôn, yeah. Anh là dân chơi thôn, đóng một bút chỉ phách, yeah, trông hơi ngon. Chơi như trong khuôn phép, tuyệt đối không chơi hơn. Về nhà thì sợ ba mẹ chứ vẫn là ở quê trò để chơi, anh phải làm một chuyến để đời. Ở quê tắm sông từ nhỏ lên thành phố mới có bể bơi. Tưởng rằng mua sắm đắt đỏ nhưng anh thấy nó cũng rẻ thôi. Mang nhiều tiền đi quá nên tiêu bớt để cho nhẹ người. Anh chất nhạ quê mạng không thải, đã uống rượu bia xe không lại. Lấy con đại bàng làm linh vật, bốc đồn gò rai hát sinh nhật.
Let's go.
Từ ngày còn nhỏ tí chưa xa nhà đâu, nên chiều này cũng tính mua mấy căn nhà lầu. Lượn là vào club nghe nhạc Vina House, selfie cùng bạn cũ trước khi xa nhau. Cần nạp nạn mana anh phi vào Nico, nạp vào xong nghỉ khoe như superhero. Khoe rồi anh lại thích chất xếp hình Lego, cùng mấy em mỗi quốc say hello hello.
Yeah, you know it's boy Mỹ Con represent Southside to the day that I die, yeah. Fucking with the boy Mỹ Con, nếu ngày mai mình chia hai, biết tình thể phải tìm ai rồi.
we doing, friends?
Anh đâu từng nói gì dài dòng nè, ghét thì ghét thôi, không tìm kiếm sự hài lòng vì quan điểm có thể thay đổi nhưng sự thật thì không. Và sợ thì anh vẫn định dù mất chất hay không, vẫn là Mỹ con baby, hate on baby, dương em nệm ấm ngủ ngon baby. Sao mày có thể ghét đây khi mà nặng cả thằng Mỹ con hơi bị ghét tay. Yeah, you know it's boy Mỹ con represent Southside to the day that I die. Yeah. Fucking with the boy Mỹ con đến ngày mai mình chia hai, biết tình thế phải tìm ai giờ. Fucking with the boy Mỹ con, yeah, you fucking with the boy Mỹ con, yeah, you fucking with the boy, fucking with the boy Mỹ con. Một lần là em mất con lựa chọn vì biết tìm đâu ra.
Em on top, không phải trending, không phải YouTube, không phải trending. Anh on top, em ở trên anh. Big Oliver drop, người ta có tên anh. Big city boy.
So you'll notice some of these Viet songs, they have a few English phrases for the hook, but most of the bars are in Vietnamese.
Có phim thì sorry em. Đón 10 giờ PM. Em thích có SEA Games. Hợp âm anh thích là CM. Xem thích là BM. Viết anh thích là CM. Yeah. Chói em bằng cà phê. Penthouse trên Đà Lạt. Nếu mà ngoan em sẽ bị thương. Nếu mà hư em sẽ được phạt. K.O.A.Z. What about you? Hay là mang thêm friend đi không sao đâu. Yeah, anh không thường say yes và em không thể say no. Nhìn anh lúc nào cũng fresh, make em hay to say oh. Big city boy. Big city, big city boy. Big city, big city space. Speakers in the house, make some motherfucking noise. Yeah, we up all night. What you gonna do, ngày sát DJ? What you gonna do, them bottles keep coming. What you gonna do, thành phố nó không ngủ. Tell me what you gonna do, hey.
We've only been hanging out for like, what, 15 minutes? There's glitter all over my floor, and it's hot in the studio.
Nhạc đơn giản không phải câu cây.
That's why I need you to dance with me, so I'm not sweaty by myself, you know?
Sorry, anh là câu chuyện. Không lòng vòng anh như Hải Phòng. Thích anh rồi phải không? Không cần vội em như
Don't
Hà
leave me
Nội.
hanging.
Cần thêm thời gian em mới trải lòng. Cần em như anh cần thơ. Thật ra anh chỉ muốn em gần hơn. Thật
Glitter,
ra anh chỉ
glitter,
muốn ta
glitter,
tương
glitter.
tác. Anh không
Oh
chịu
my
ngủ
God.
em nói ngừng mơ. Không chịu ngủ anh như Sài Gòn. Party với bạn all night long. Nếu mà đó là thứ em muốn, anh có thể đặt cho em hài lòng. Nghiện thuốc có thể lao cai, nhưng nghiện em không thể nào cai. Trai hư anh không phải dị, nhưng trai tốt anh phải vào vai. Big city, big city boy. Big city, big city boy. Big city, big city space. Speakers in the house, make some motherfucking noise. Yeah, we up all night. What you gonna do, ngày sát DJ? What you gonna do, them bottles keep coming. What you gonna do, thành phố nó không ngủ. Tell me what you gonna do, hey. Big city boy. Big city, big city boy. Big city, big city space. Speakers in the house, make some motherfucking noise. Yeah, we up all night. What you gonna do, ngày sát DJ? What you gonna do, them bottles keep coming. What you gonna do, thành phố nó không ngủ. Tell me what you gonna do, hey.
Giờ đêm đeo tai phone chơi game, tự nhiên một tên nào điên bấm chuông sùm như còng chân đang lên đồng. Làm ba tôi gồng dậy cái vụ gì đây, đứa con gái làm bầm mấy câu rủa thầm. Cắt ngang với tông gái mà giờ này ai, sao không chờ ngày mai hay là gặp phải mấy ông trẻ đùi dai. Liền bỏ headphone ra khỏi tai khi mà nghe tiếng chân bịch bịch, sao tôi điên đầu. Tôi liền cau mày sao ba cho họ lên lầu, làm mặt ngầu đúng cực hình đêm khuya. Cầu nhau lầu bầu nghe gần hơn chính là tiếng chân đất. Dẹp tên thành tịch như là cái beat làm như chuyện không lành đã lên tiếng còng cọc tiếng cửa xù mở cửa ra, bất thình lình nhìn thấy hai thanh cha chỉ khóc kể ba nói muốn nhảy lầu đêm qua, rồi ba nói là ba nói đùa. Tôi khóc bài con đã làm được gì cho ba, coi như thu hoạch không đúng mùa. Nhưng mà đây vô thường hư không làm ơn
This song is by Sue Boy. You remember my friend Isabel Du, Miss Vietnam USA? 2017? She used to manage Sue way back when. So amazing to see Queen Sue Boy killing it now.
Cây nào lớn mà không có rễ sâu, chèo té muốn bể đầu, về đi khui nắp chai pập hay phát có sao đâu. Ngâu một chữ ai cầm play tôi đeo cặp kính màu đen, cả thân cây với lá đâu có cần ghen. Và trong một đêm đời buồn thêm, con không tin vào tai, cú điện thoại mẹ biểu về ngay. Tai nạn ba đo đường, thằng bà trên giường mặt sưng nhằn không ra, mẹ nó mất việc phải không ba, con nát nghẹn tắt trong mồm mà sao ba biết. Đời em còn cái gì mà phải tiếc. Giọng ba lại cất xu, đừng khóc con, ở đời có cái gì là mãi mãi. Vô thường hư không, làm ơn sống có cái tấm lòng. Đời vô thường hư không, đời vô thường hư không, làm ơn sống có cái tấm lòng. Đời vô thường hư không, đời vô thường hư không.
Vô thường hư không.
How we doing, friends? How are we doing?
Ok và mấy con chó này ok, và bố mày bảo là ok, và mày đều thích thì ok, dù tao chặt đá thì ok, dù tao đập đá thì thôi đê, bố mày chơi 2 từ
So if you don't know my crew, I'm a third of
và bố mày bảo là ok, và mày đều thích thì ok.
I wore some mesh for today, because I knew I'd be dancing a bunch, but
để tao giải thích.
this part's velvet.
Còn nếu quen biết thì
So it's
ok,
toasty.
còn nếu thân thiết thì ke ke, còn nếu không thích tao ca ca. Mấy thằng nhà giàu đi Qatar về nước tao rủ ra aha, thay vì nó nhắn là ok nó lại viết tắt KO. Vãi lột tức, bố mày vãi lột tức, không giấu lại còn tin cốt. Mấy thằng chó đi net thì vứt cả cái rap Việt này. Thằng nào ngứa mồm lúc freestyle, người thiếu tử mà không đủ câu thì mồm lúc nào cũng đệm. Ok và mấy con chó này ok, và bố mày bảo là ok, và mày đéo thích thì ok, dù tao chặt đá thì ok, dù tao đập đá thì thôi đê. Còn phốc nhà tao mà biết thông điếu thì lại vãi lộn ok và mấy con chó này ok, và bố mày bảo là ok, và mày đéo thích thì ok.
You doing okay?
Ninja lằng lá thì ok, ninja đập đá thì hơi khê, cái ngay thằng chí mà hết biến thái thì lại
You doing great?
lướt trên mặt nước tao như cơn sóng, chân của tao quả dẻo khi Nike của tao đang phóng. Kể từ khi tao bắt đầu rap, không bài nào của tao không nóng. Năm mặt trời cho Biggie chết, cũng là năm sinh ra cậu Long. Gà đàn bà như Drake, em yêu anh thì em Kiki. Lên giường tao kể chuông xâm sách, chân đi pu my MTV. Cả đời tao chết vì flex, đừng hỏi sao Logi sủa căng. Có thằng chí vào gấu câu hùa, bọn tao thành rapper của năm. Đi ngay vào bar nếu không say thì tao lại không uống. Tại sao khi em bơm bóng mông em lại còng xuống? Em lại hỏi phải còng thế nào để cho nó chuẩn. Anh đặt tay vào hông em mà rên thì anh bó cẩn. Tại sao ai cũng hỏi tại sao tao không thì rap Việt. Có thằng chỉ tao như điên, chỉ đơn giản vì rap tao quá tuyệt. Tao chiều tao là thứ nhất, xong chiều mấy em gái thứ hai.
So one of the reasons why I love this rapper, he has a northern accent. And growing up, the only people I knew with northern accents were like my dad and my aunt, who are very proper. So it's really fun to hear someone, just like a younger person, speak and rap with that accent. Very Becky.
Man, she with them red stripes, European golden star, doing blossom, not a chain, setting trends, raise the bars, stay with toppers. Go read the droppers, salute the rappers, and Joseph Parters, man, they should know rap. V-I-E-T-N-A-M, tell me where you from, baby, tell me where you from.
I'm from California, but I'm Vietnamese American. Whenever someone goes, where are you from? I'm like, LA. What's good? Yo, like, what kind of Asian are you?
nên đáng lo. Da vàng mái tóc đen và cái trán to. Khó khăn ta không màng hay là ngán no. Và tụi tao Việt Nam Á Châu cùng là chung dùng máu nên đừng có mà đá nhau. Cùng đã khá đâu chẳng có bao gian nan thì mới khá hơn. Sống mày đừng quá trơn, nói về kẻ trồng cây thì phải biết ơn đó. Nam Kỳ flow tụi tao viết cho sự nhiệt huyết chứ không phải là kỳ thị nhau. Đừng gì nghĩ tao Vietnamese Diaspora đại diện cho những thế hệ sau. Thích thì nể tao không cũng chẳng sao. Việt Nam
Thank you so much for hanging with me, friends. We got a power hour. Let's make the most of our time.
Nhạc của tao từ Việt Nam cho Việt Nam nghe. Nhạc nước ngoài đủ Việt Nam, nhạc nước ngoài yeah. Chất nhất người Việt Nam hào khí chất ngất. Không thể mất, tụi tao bất khuất, mãi không mất chất. Cờ tao phất phất, tụi bay lật đật. Đôi chân giật giật, bỏ chạy mất đất. Việt Nam thống nhất.
Trên đường thì làm quen, dính vô mấy chuyện rùm beng. Lửa phục chế chăm thức trong tay chứng tỏ con nhỏ liều một phen. Yeah, tụi Việt Nam đương nhiên là homie ba miền. Máu đỏ như người ta không phải để phúng mà ra tiền. No no, đừng bao giờ giải thích với thằng em nào không nghe. Đừng bao giờ cãi lý, coi là mình lấy tay che. Có nhau cắt tay xe. We are all we have, baby.
Yo, it's Lani Love.
If you don't already have a refreshment of sorts, I'm gonna give you this song. Fix yourself a beverage. Get some water. Let's hydrate. Cheers. So this cup is actually from Vietnam, and it's made from recycled glass. Handmade by local artisans in Vietnam. Some of these tunes are on iTunes, but not. It's like half and half. So I will be doing mixtapes, but perhaps best of all, this set will be archived with Grandparkla, so you can watch it again. I was like, what's my favorite collection of music? Let me bring it out for Grandparkla. Okay, are we hydrated? Do we have a beverage? Are we ready to turn it up? Water too, we're moving.
Billy with her, you know what I'm saying? I just wanna do some more. Women 24, all my fucking stay and let you know, keep it cold. Dancing on the beat, you fuck them bitches on the floor. Oh, she got a hit, she shook my dick, it's so hardcore. I just wanna do some more. With 24, all my fucking stay and you know, keep it cold. Dancing on the beat, you fuck them bitches on the floor. Oh, she got a hit, she shook my dick, it's so hardcore. I just wanna do some more, do it, do some more. Do it, do some more. I just wanna do some more. Do some more. I just wanna do some more. Do it. I just wanna do some more. I just wanna do some more. You can't ignore. Shawty want some more, but I just wanna break the law. Tôi từng nghe từng đánh và vẫn cứ gánh vì sự tự do. Và nó vào trong túi vì tôi thật có giấc mơ bự to. Money cash in the bank, bỏ vào trong gang. Đây không phải tội ác nên khỏi nói với tao về công an. Tôi là tôi chết tôi sống không cần chờ hạ tới hay là đông sang. Do it for my money, do it for my gang shit. Không có thể niệm về thời gian, bỏ qua lời than chỉ là công việc. Đã có quá gì là mà mình đang chạy với thời gian nhưng lại không kịp chỉ thế với chiếc con làm than. Kia theo với giấy là hành trang, độ nhiều với sức nóng đang hòa tan. Do for my than, chỉ mới sự can. Just wanna do some more. With 24, all my fucking stay and let you know, keep it cool. Dancing on the beat, you fuck them bitches on the floor. Oh, she got a hit, she shook my dick, it's so hardcore. I just wanna do some more. With 24, all my fucking stay and let you know, keep it cool. Dancing on the beat, you fuck them bitches on the floor. Oh, she got a hit, she shook my dick, it's so hardcore. I just wanna do some more. Do it, do some more. Do some more. I just wanna do some more. Do some more. I just wanna do some more. Do it. I just wanna do some more. I just wanna.
Okay. We're like more than halfway through our evening. If you're not sweaty yet, I'm not doing my job right.
Changing the virtual by LV, chồng tôi có tí bills, making money bitch, and keep it chill. Homie bật con biết trap, and keep it real. Money with tao có sẵn, mình làm một điều.
This track is one of my favorites. I need you to go crazy.
Từ cống ngầm tao up luôn vào casino. Nhạc rap vẫn đang phát triển và nó đang đổ bộ. Mùi cần với phản phất xung quanh thành phố. Lil Wayne, Ricky on the same side. Romero Cush lại một đêm dài. Anh em huynh đệ luôn ở bên vai. Trap life on the beat, Vietnamese high.
Up, baby mama say what's up. Yeah, we stick it moving up. OTD, not 5G, this is OD, it's RG. Now you say up. Baby mama say what's up. Yeah, we stick it moving up. OTD, not 5G, this is OD.
Yeah, I'm running 1, 2 on the beat. Khỏi cần phải gọi tên mà chỉ cần nghe flow là biết. Yeah, hip hop switching from the bottom to the top. Bitch, bạn xếp hạng nhạc Việt mà chỉ toàn thấy là underground nằm top. Hit order, từ miền Tây cho tới miền Trung. Đến đây bốc cháy, put your hands up in the air. Không thích bay bóng, nếu mày uống thì cứ mời tao. Và mỗi khi bước vào show tao muốn mày rap cùng với lời tao. Yeah, like the funny man, smoking Mary Jane. Knife in my van, straight up with the gang. Không để phí thời gian, coi nó như đóng vàng. Nếu không nhanh chóng lên, mày sẽ nhanh chóng tàn đi. Nên tao cứ chơi tới với cuộc đời dù nhiều fan chơi vơi vẫn phơi và đổi mới đem âm nhạc đi nơi nơi. Yeah, working every day, party all the night cùng Ricky, Terry, Robert. Yeah, we on the same side.
Up, baby mama say what's up. Yeah, we stick it moving up. OTD, not 5G, this is OD, it's RG. Now you say baby mama say what's up. Yeah, we stick it moving up.
OTD motherfucker. Terry Hồ nói một câu của ta hay như là Quavo. Tụi ta có tiền và gái đang có sẵn ở on my table. Cho chú với thành Ro cùng hợp tác tổ ra một label. Tụi ta với nhiều ý tưởng và được tái xuất ở City Central. Thành chỗ người Mexico, tao thấy nó vẫn đang đi vô. Trên người nó thì toàn mùi gái, sự khoát sức tao Coolio. Có những demo và đâu mà phải nằm dưới sàn. Tao đến home với sự giàu có nên tao chắc chắn sẽ cưới nàng. Rap house làm xuyên 2 giờ sáng, chưa 3 giờ tàn. Không quan tâm tới mấy con đĩ vì mấy thằng tao vẫn chung một vàng. Cái đầu over tới chỉ là tụi nó tiếp tục bung hàng. Cái tao mình như lướt sống mà tụi tao lướt lên cung đàn. tao trải qua nhiều vấp ngã như indie band. Không đi đầu xung dòng nhạc này nhưng lấy cho mấy cho bom.
Baby mama say what's up, sup, 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 sup. Yeah, we still keep moving up, 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 up. OTD, not 5G, this is OD, it's RG. Now you say.
Hey.
Yeah.
Thank you for vibing with me. Got me hype. Our LA voices, what's up?
Không tự làm sao biết. Giờ thì không phải tiếc. Tuổi trẻ là phải liếc.
Một đời người có bao nhiêu lâu được vui chơi thoải mái. Một ngày dài với bao âu lo cần đi đâu xả stress. Và một lần thử cảm giác lân lân từ bia tươi và khói. Bắt nhịp cùng anh em đôi ba câu chuyện rồi cười nói. Mặc kệ mấy thằng không ngồi trong bàn tiệc, thích bàn ra bàn vô như thịt. Hô to và nâng ly cho cuộc vui đêm nay thêm nhiệt. Là người Việt Nam nói về ăn chơi từ xưa tới giờ chưa bao giờ ngán. Từ thời bảo đại cho tới hiện đại luôn có tiệc tùng quanh năm suốt tháng. Văn hóa làm mạnh giữ mình lành lặn để cuộc vui này con nối dài.
Nếu mày thích em kia như vậy tại sao mày không tới phố đi cô? Còn thấy uống chưa say thì mày liên hệ kêu thêm chém mới đi cô. Có hàng ngon thì hú đến tao truyền con anh em mình bố đi cô. Mỗi ngày nhiều đổi tay về tìm mọi giây lại quen làm tới đi cô. Không thể tuổi thanh xuân vì xích vì kiến thức tiêu hay biết. Yeah, chơi sao đúng vậy cua đúng thời điểm không quay chờ thiên tiên. Yeah, ngoài tiền của em phải chip game này Hennessy với Viet. Yeah, tuổi trẻ mình phải lên.
When it gets too toasty, you need a bigger fan.
It's the CAM, yeah, the one and only. I see the crew represent all day. Xe về chỗ nhưng chỉ bốn thằng homie gầm tiếp đất thì biết ok. Khói ngập phong thì cái đầu lạnh cống. Còn tắc hai thì thằng ngồi cạnh đống. Giờ thì nhìn rap mình là phát phiền lòng. Get with rap việc vì tôi khuyết bên trong. Man, you already know. Búa trong đầu được kim lúa trong show. Check. Boy, you already high. Nhưng phải chưa hạ vì nhạc quả bên tai nào lốt the night with the sickest rhyme. Blow your mind in a day of time. On the low, I be getting mine. Yeah, place the chronic shit, place the chronic shit.
Rap chip đời tìm đuổi chip đồ. Sống tới lúc nào còn rap tới mấy bầu ơi. Chặng đời này bao gồm nước mắt thuốc lá đôi khi phải nói dấu.
And welcome to new followers.
Nếu như mình đốn tiếc mà cứ phải bối rối. Khi mình thức trắng
Welcome to Grandparkla, our LA voices.
Thật vui khi được nghe về nó. Đây là niềm vui mà nó chưa hề có. Tao bóp nát ấp dạng mặc dù tao muốn chở với mấy bạn
have you for
nếu thấy lao được thì nhớ
a
đến
little bit
lúc
longer.
cao bậc vì ước muốn đã
Not too much, so let's make every song count.
Nếu biết cách theo lên mây trong bài rap storytelling.
Từ cái nốt tiếp hút tiếp beat tiếp rap tiếp cho ta còn biết cây beat để beat tôi là sự khác biệt các tuyệt flow nghe ác tiếng hip hop nằm bên trong mạch huyết tụi ta phát nhiệt để mà đem rap Việt lên một tầm cao nói chơi phát nhịp cho đại chúng được biết đây là âm thanh nên được phát từ underground. Alo đây là SMO yellow thích thích booty ball quanh co chỉ cho đắn đo tại sao lại phải là khó trò chơi cho gì đâu đừng lo đen như con cáo chúng ta tặng trước.
Cô Thắm nghe tôi nói cái này nè. Người miền Tây của tụi tôi thật thà chất phác lắm. Tôi thương thì tôi nói tôi thương. Bởi vậy ta nói
cô ơi cô đừng đi lấy chồng. Về Tây Đô bên dòng sông tôi ngồi hát cô nghe đó trời ơi. Cô đừng đi lấy chồng để hai thằng buồn câu hò lý cây bông.
anh ngâm nga về câu hò lý cây bông. Anh hò cho một cô em gái đang chạy tóc bên sông. Anh chỉ sống với mái chèo đâu có đất mênh mông. Chỉ cần em còn ngồi chạy tóc anh quyết ở mãi bên sông. Ơi hò là hò ơi trong đầm Việt đẹp bằng sen. Quê mình ai đẹp bằng em xinh đẹp không cần bằng khen. Mới tí tuổi mà đã biết hẹn. Đội bồ kết nên tóc em đen dáng dịu dàng và đoan trang. Đừng vội về nhà chi sớm em ơi. Khoan bông trắng và bông xanh cho anh nhọc quê hỏi em còn độc thân hay chăng. Đặng anh biết anh còn chờ ngày cùng đun cơm thổi lửa. Ăn chung một mâm cơm hò cho em nghe mỗi bữa. Hai đứa gặp là duyên ghé anh liền rồi nghiêng em nở nụ cười duyên. Vậy là em thích anh là xèn. Anh biết anh không nhiều tiền nhưng mà tiền không phải là quyền. Anh có quyền thương, quyền nhớ, quyền viết cho em bài thơ. Em gái đừng vội làm ngơ khi ghé anh去chợ lúa. Biết đâu anh thành tỷ phú khi lúa tóc anh trúng mùa. Chỉ cần ta còn bên nhau và cùng chung một cơn mơ. Chứ đừng bến bồi bến lỡ để anh lỡ hoài mong chờ. Thắm ơi hò là hò ơi hò là hò ơi hò là hò ơi hò là hò ơi hò là hò
for your support, cheering me on. Happy Thursday. Thanks for helping me kick off tonight. I have you for another 7 minutes. Let's make them count. So up next in tonight's program with our LA Voices is a chat with myself and Elizabeth I of the New Wave documentary. We're going to talk about Vietnamese American New Wave and her upcoming project, about the genre, the era, the Vietnamese American genre of the 80s. So just to set the stage for our conversation with Elizabeth, I'm going to play a few Viet New Wave tracks. Viet New Wave is just essentially all these jams from the 80s.
Love has gone away, but I'll survive. I can live without you. Clouds will fly away. I'll bet my mind to forget about you when you like to play with an easy heart. But I think it's over, so I'll call my friends. Time is right to dance. Now the music is my chance. I can hear your voice, 'cause you can get me high. 'Cause life is music, music's life. I can hear your voice, 'cause with I feel tonight. To dance to music, time is right.
This is from my dad, authentic 1980 radio from his time in a refugee camp before he came to the States.
Yêu thương chợt vút bay, mình vẫn nơi đây. Lòng nghe thoáng nỗi buồn rơi mây. Trên trời vẫn bay, lòng cố quên đi. Tình xưa hỡi tan vào mây. Hỡi anh sao cơn đùa với con chim dại khờ. Tình thôi đã bay mù khơi. Hỡi anh tôi bây giờ sống vui bên âm nhạc. Đời tôi sẽ trong âm nhạc thôi. Lắng nghe tiếng anh hát, tim tôi cùng quay ngất ngây. Đời tôi là âm nhạc ngát hương say. Lắng nghe tiếng anh hát, tôi tan vào mơ tối nay. Vòng tay nào êm đềm đã bên tôi. Lắng nghe tiếng anh hát, tim tôi cùng quay ngất ngây. Đời tôi là âm nhạc ngát hương say. Lắng nghe tiếng anh hát, tôi tan vào mơ tối nay. Vòng tay nào êm đềm.
So that little boombox, it gets me emotional sometimes because I grew up seeing that around the house. I did not know the history behind it until this past February when I had to stream for Lunar New Year. Came home to my parents' house with a face mask and all, and I was like, hey, Dad, you still have that? I was like, how long have you had that? Since 1980. I was like, what? And then I learned that he bought it with the little money he had when he was in a refugee camp, awaiting his fate. He didn't know if he was going to the States or stuck there for years. He had no idea. But he bought that radio so he could listen to BBC, Voices of America, and just know what was going on outside the world. Outside in the world. And that's why it is the most precious thing that I have in my possession at this time. So I have you for just a couple more minutes, so let's make the most of this song. And if this is our first time meeting, I'm DJ Lani Love. I'm based in LA, and this was such a treat. You can find me at DJ Lani Love all over the internet, Twitch, Instagram, Mixcloud. Let's keep in touch. And I'll show you a cool slip hat I got before we go. Hey. Club Mesh. It's me and my crew. So there is a link in the stream of the chat, title of the stream, and in the chat, to catch my conversation with Elizabeth I. And if you could use more music in your life, join me this weekend. I will be live streaming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the music doesn't stop here.
I love you, te quiero. Si tu revenir, on sera seul, la fenêtre de la lune.
Note the French.
Toi et moi.
English, Vietnamese, 3 languages in one song.
On parlera d'amour. Je suis là pour te vœu de mon cœur. Xin tình yêu ngọt thơm cùng ta lâu say trong tim mắt ai. Xin tình ai vì ta ôi bền lâu đừng phai khi đêm đã qua. Mong tình kia dài lắm trong đời ta người ơi xin cho thiết tha. Xin vì nhau thì kia như mùa xuân ngàn hoa dâng hương đắm say.
Big thank you to Grand Park and the production team for making tonight possible.
Sounds a bit to one illusion, give me you should so. You will go to make my blue sky, give me you should so. Sounds a bit to one illusion, give me you should so. You will go to make my blue sky, give me you should so.
Good to see you, friends. Thank you for making my kickoff set for our LA Voices such a treat. Thank you for dancing with me. Hi everyone, I'm DJ Lani Love. Thank you so much to everyone who just joined me for my Viet trap set. Now we're going to talk about another one of my favorite genres of music, Vietnamese American New Wave. And I'm so excited because we have a special guest and filmmaker, Elizabeth Ai.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Grand Park, for having us. We are very excited to be here, and we're so excited to share more about New Wave with all of you.
Yes, our LA Voices, thank you for having us be a part of your program. So we'll start by talking about what is Vietnamese New Wave. It's a genre of music that was from the 80s, from Vietnamese Americans. And it doesn't exactly link up to this sound that we associate with New Wave. So like a lot of us think New Order, Depeche Mode. It is from that era, but it's kind of more similar to like Italo disco artists like Modern Talking are kind of the sound of Viet New Wave, but it's also a little bit broader than that, right, Elizabeth?
Right. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's exclusive because definitely people that listen to Vietnamese New Wave also listen to the broader genre of New Wave, like the Depeche Mode and The Cure and Duran Duran. They kind of anything from the 80s with that synth sound or synth instrumentation fell under that umbrella. And specifically for Viet New Wave, it was a lot of the artists were German, and it was Euro disco was kind of like this subgenre that was created, and I guess it would be a subgenre of disco almost. It was like a disco kind of sound and tempo that was using synthesized instrumentation, and very much from the research that I've done was inspired from like the Giorgio Moroder's and Kraftwerk, and then it became kind of this own brand, mostly out of Germany, but also Italy and France and Switzerland. Even Austrian bands came out of that. So it was a little bit of this sidestep to the stuff that we generally refer to as New Wave here in America.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I actually love Vietnamese New Wave so much is that signature like synthesized sound. It's very dated, like time capsule vibe, but it's all so dancey and very like happy and joyous.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was what really drew me to the project. I was just thinking about, when I was pregnant specifically, I was like, what story am I going to tell as a filmmaker and share with my daughter this story? And I knew it was time to like step away from all the war stories, all the trauma porn that we've seen, specifically white men tell about the Vietnamese community through movies like Apocalypse Now or Platoon, or even Ken Burns with his 10 hours, of the Vietnam War from a very much American white perspective. And I think, I was like, I want to tell a happy story about our people. I want to tell a happy story about the resettlement, the rebuilding, and the rebirth of a Vietnamese diaspora identity. And what better way through music and culture. And New Wave just felt like the right thing because I don't think very many people knew about it. When I started to ask around about the bands, even talking to my own husband, I was like, hey, have you ever heard about Modern Talking or CC Catch? They had like these big hits, and he's like, what are you talking about? So yes, in terms of New Wave, it is very unique and special. And it was never, from what I've learned through my researches, it was never played in US radio. It didn't chart. I think there are a few exceptions, but very, very rarely would anybody have heard of these bands.
Yeah, it's so serendipitous that we were put in touch like earlier this year because I just was on my personal journey to collect more Vietnamese music, not tied to any specific goal or project. I just felt like, hey, it might be kind of fun to collect more music from the Vietnamese, like just diaspora, whether it's, people in Vietnam or Viet Americans making music.
and I just gravitated so naturally to the new wave sound. And then a bunch of people forwarded me your Instagram because I just did one of those like Instagram posts like, hey, does anyone have any artists or CDs from your parents or whatever? And some mutual friends had sent me your link, but also strangers as well were like, hey, check out this Instagram account. And it was just so great to see somebody was starting to document this and bring stuff that I think could have easily been lost and never brought to the digital era.
Oh, I definitely don't want to take credit for bringing it into the digital era. There are definitely people that have written articles, bloggers, and other people that have kind of highlighted it, as well as the artists themselves, like the people who were, like the Linda Chang Dais and Tai Tai and all of them kind of still making that effort to revive the music in the Orange County Viet diaspora scene. But specifically, I think in terms of creating a presence on social media, that was a way for sharing. Really, I was going down and doing all of this research and just realized that the archives that I could find online were pretty sparse. And of what I could find, it was very pixelated, low res solution videos and photographs that I just realized, beyond the the glitz and the glam of the musicians that were making the music of the time that had documentation, there was very little around the scene and the people that had gathered around it. Because I have all these stories from family, friends of family, and friends of friends, that said, oh, my parents or my uncles and my aunties listened to this music. And creating the Instagram was a way to crowdsource photos, was a way to crowdsource videos, and it just kind of I didn't know if anybody was ever going to write me or share anything, but as soon as we shared it, I had a few friends that started to repost on their stories, and all of these materials came in. So it's been it's a very small following, but they're very engaged. Everyone's very engaged, and I'm so grateful to everybody that has submitted it, photos and videos. All of that hopefully will be shared soon in the years to come. And I hope that some of it will actually make it into the film.
Yeah. So did you listen to New Wave growing up, like as a kid?
I did. So I'm a child of the 80s, and it wasn't my music because I came of age in the 90s, and hip hop and even gangster rap and all of that was really my sound. But in terms of being a little kid, I saw my uncles and aunties who were in their teens, and my parents and their friends and stuff in their 20s and 30s were listening to this music. So it was always playing in the background. Of course, I loved it as a kid. You don't have you haven't quite formulated your tastes yet. So whatever's in the background, and that was definitely on repeat all the time, on the weekends before they went out, as they get ready to party, all of it was always in the car. So I heard it all the time. And it was something that, I started to play again recently in the last few years, and hearing it, you're like, oh man, this stuck with you forever because I still know all the words. So, it's like probably like some white American kid who's like, I listened to the Beatles growing up. They still probably know it, even if they take a lot of distance from it at some point.
Right.
But yeah, it's no comparison because it only played so much in a very short window of time in my childhood. But I still remember those songs, and it still makes me very nostalgic for that time.
And do you speak Vietnamese?
Like, you're really going to ask. I do speak Vietnamese, not well though. I'd say like a 3-year-old's proficiency, maybe 4-year-old. I mean, I can get like basic food, directions, number, and ask. I can have, superficial conversations, but I wouldn't be able to talk about politics or religion or anything like that.
But you know the songs, so that's something.
Oh, yes. But I have no idea what I'm saying. I know some of the songs, like it's, because they sing a lot of it, it's in English and Vietnamese, so you get the idea. They're always like, I think that's what's so special about it is like, they're the artists from, Europe, those, the Germans, the French, the Italians that were singing these songs, but the Vietnamese, I think what makes it so special is that they took that music and they weren't just playing it. It was like these Vietnamese artists that embraced it and made it their own. And they said, we're going to sing these songs, but we're going to translate them and we're going to sing in Vietnamese and English, or French and English, or French and Vietnamese. So I think that's something that's really unique about it, beyond like, oh, it's a genre of 80s music that we don't really know about. It's like they actually took it and just made it something of their own. Even the compositions. Yeah.
That was another thing I wanted to bring up about it. I think the fact that a lot of these songs are sang in sometimes one, like English and Vietnamese, or sometimes throw in French, 3 languages, makes it such a very unique piece of culture. And also makes it so fun to share like with audiences now. Like I feel like at least, to my Twitch audience and like Club Mesh community, like they love when I sprinkle in Viet New Wave tracks, because there's something that they can understand, and then something that's very foreign and like new to them, it's so fun to play. And sometimes it will be an instrumental from a lesser known 80s track, so they'll be like, it sounds familiar, and I'm like, you think but you actually don't know this song, or at least I'd be surprised if you knew this version.
Yes. Yeah, I think just riffing off of that, like it always, even like watching the music videos, I always feel like I'm in some sort of parallel universe, because even when you watch them and you go, gosh, this looks like it would have been on MTV, but it's all Asian faces and they're all doing like really weird things that, I felt like the 80s and the MTV culture was very experimental. And that was kind of another big draw for me. Obviously the music and the memories, but the other part is like the idea of like looking at artifacts of the past and then saying this all is familiar. I know all of this, but it's all these people that I didn't really, I didn't see like in my life growing up, but my parents did. And it wasn't something that was playing on MTV. It was something that you had to specifically go out and buy the VHS tape of it. So if you weren't watching it, you didn't know. So now I'm like seeing things that maybe I remember in the background, but I wasn't actually watching, or now I'm like, wow, I actually never had a chance to see that. And I'm really proud of our elders for having had the guts to do this stuff.
Yeah. Like, I think sometimes it just it's a matter of, becoming an adult and really being able to look back and appreciate what it is and what it was. Because I think as a kid, it's just like, you don't really understand what music is and what it's expressing or any of that. It's just like, it's just on and it's around, it's fun. And then I think in recent years, as I've grown up, I'm appreciating my Vietnamese heritage more, and also just in awe of these artists that came from a foreign country and like created joy for themselves, a space for themselves.
Yes. I love that you brought that up. I mean, that is really a big part of it. I know I said it a little bit about it earlier, that these narratives have been shared by a lot of non-Vietnamese people. And it's something that it's not like if you are, in this mode of rebuilding your life, that it's all tragedy all the time, right? Like this is one of the things. It's before safe spaces was a thing, was a phrase that we threw around saying, oh, we need to find our safe spaces to share and build and create. This was it. New Wave or the music industry having to come together around something creative or to share culture was their safe space, was their way to express joy or to share joy again, and to have memories of the past, because it wasn't like, well, we're just listening to Euro disco. It was also a way to say, okay, we're singing in Vietnamese, we're bringing our families together. And I love that you actually said earlier that it was so much fun. It's like they have to build these things, right? Because you're not like going to just keep revisiting and keep remembering only traumatic things about a past of losing a homeland and then having to rebuild.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, like, on a personal level, do your parents or family talk about kind of their experience in immigrating to the States? Because I know a lot of Asian American families, there's parents don't really talk about that journey, that experience. So I was curious what it's like for you and your family.
I think I told you about this, a little bit about this, in our previous conversations, but it was really hard growing up, to find that pride in our culture, because a big part of it was you cannot talk about the past. My grandfather was in re-education camp. He was a captain in the war, in the army, and it was a lot of devastating things happened to my family and other people, like extended family and friends. So, you grew up not really knowing that much about your culture because you weren't asked to participate in that kind of like excavating of history and culture. And I think the other part of it is because of that, because of the rebuilding and the resettling aspect of it, we're all kind of like reaching to prove our Americanness. I think there's a lot of conversations about that now where you're like, hello, of course I'm American. Like, what more can I do to prove this to you, right? Like, you're with all of this AAPI hate around. But it's, it was really difficult growing up. And now that rediscovery has been such a source of pride for me to understand why we couldn't talk about those things at home. Like, you don't want to re-traumatize your family. You don't want to re-traumatize, other people who are going through things like your elders. But it's the idea of regurgitating this past or having this past and revisiting it in a way that's joyful and really honors that journey that they made. That has felt very satisfying to me in the last few years and even beyond, because I feel like this kind of rediscovery of my Vietnameseness has been such a journey. And New Wave has been I feel like it's been the icing of a lot of learnings in the last decade of my life.
I love how beautifully you just articulated all of that. I mean, as you were talking about it, I get like a little emotional because it's I feel like it's very, I don't want to bring up traumas that my parents went through, but I also would love to like learn about it, and I think in some ways music is like that fun piece to talk.
I feel for you so much because I'm very emotional as well. Like, that's one of those things you talk about these things, and of course I can't completely avoid talking about that trauma because obviously you kind of hide away in these spaces. You hide away in your music, you hide away in your work, right? Our parents work so hard and you're like, why didn't they understand me? And we can start to think about, oh, they worked night and day. We never had those conversations. But when did you have time to have those conversations when you're like, the first thing they thought about was like, can we pay the bills? Are we going to make this work? Are we going to feed our kids? Are they going to get to the right schools? Are they going to make it to the next level in their lives, not speaking English? And so they try to like strip you away from the very thing that now as somebody who is American, who's firmly rooted in this country, that you're like, no, my strength is in knowing who I am and knowing about my past. So obviously you can't just like say, oh no, this is just about Viet joy. It's about like unpacking what that is like, these are the moments that they tried to like celebrate identity, celebrate community, celebrate each other and share. It's so much bigger than New Wave, right? I'm calling the documentary New Wave. And of course I'm exploring a music called New Wave, but it's really like this new wave of identity, of culture, of people, of traditions that we're unpacking all of that. And it's going to be a long time, before we really understand what it is, or even if we do, we just have to do the work and understand why some things were hidden from us or why we didn't have those conversations growing up with our parents, or lamenting like I didn't have all the conversations I wish I had with my grandparents before they passed away. because we're constantly treading like what's okay, what's not okay. And as kids, you just kind of like accept what you're given, which is like, don't ask about like things that are tragic about the past, just move forward.
Yeah. And my parents have straight up just said like, oh, you know, we didn't share it with you because we thought it was too depressing. Like, but if you don't share these stories with me, they literally will just die, you know? In working on your project, and I think you've met some of the artists from the New Wave era, right? Like some of the creators?
Yes. I guess I've met with, I don't know if you mean the original German artist, but yes, I went to France with one of the DJs of the era from the 80s. So I went with him because he was having a concert in December 2019 in Paris, and Sandra was there, and Thomas Anders from Modern Talking was at that concert, and then who else have I met? I've met, oh my gosh, why is her name escaping me right now? Oh, Leanne Ross.
Yeah.
Big song is Say You'll Never. She came here to Orange County. So I got to meet a few of those original and German artists. I think Sandra is Dutch and German. But in terms of the original Vietnamese diaspora ones, that's Linda Chang Dai and Tai Tai. And I've been on calls with a number of elders from the community. And I'm so excited for the film to come together, because it's a lot of history that was very, very hard to find and piece together. I hope I can do it justice, because I know I only have an hour and a half for the documentary, but I feel like just is the tip of the iceberg in terms of what needs to be documented.
And how did you start your journey with, you know, getting in this project, you know, learning more about the era and the artist? Like, you know, what was the start of your rabbit hole into
It was what I had said earlier, was being pregnant. It was for being pregnant for the first time and thinking, I've been making films for so long, and a lot of the stories, they resonate with me. Of course, I want to, you know, tell the story about like wage equity and gender inequality, and just, you know, unpack that BS around, you know, the NFL. Like that was the last film that I made, called A Woman's Work, the NFL's Cheerleader Problem. They weren't paying their cheerleaders. That resonated with me. I made a film about, you know, the breakdance hip hop scene. It was a narrative in Saigon that I got to film and work with all these amazing artists and friends in Saigon. And then, you know, there's so many other films that I had made throughout the course of my career, but none that specifically spoke to my personal experience. And I kind of always touched on things like, oh, this one, you know, speaks to me, and the messaging is around women, and this one's around like, you know, an artistic endeavor, or, you know, this one is in Vietnam, something I always wanted to do. But this one very specifically is like my childhood, and, you know, understanding my family and understanding what they were doing and how they found joy. And while I was pregnant, I was just like, I want to leave a story behind that's personal, very, very personal to me. Something that I can feel proud of, and something that my daughter can watch and not say, oh yeah, I know about Vietnam. I watched it because some white guy made a movie about the Vietnam War. Like I want to make my own story that's not about like, and you can find it. I'm sure there's other people that have made stories about resettlement, but I just felt like I need to add my take on it, and that I want that take to be joyful, and it can, you know, touch on what was traumatic about the past, but mostly set in a space of joy and freedom and creative expression.
Yeah, I am so excited to see your project, because like you said, it hasn't been presented by Vietnamese, like American, you know, creative storytelling, and there hasn't been enough focus on the joy. So excited to see it. Well, I think we'll wrap things up so we can pass things on for our LA voices. But thank you again, Elizabeth, for joining us. So great to hear more about your project and dive into the topic of New Wave.
Yay! Thank you so much, Lani. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. I'm so happy to be connected to another, Vietnamese American sister, and just know that we're putting out joy in the world. And I'm so excited for more conversations and hopefully a collaboration. I want to have a party with you.
Yes, definitely. Can't wait.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Met the one, Alan Salazar, Sekfa Nukasin, Chukoyanga Nukasin. Hello, I'm Alan Salazar, Puchuk Yayak, which is fast runner in my tribal language. I'm from the village of Sekfa, which is now called San Fernando, California. And I trace back my Tataviam ancestry to the village of Chigoyanga, which is in Santa Clarita. Magic Mountain was actually built over that village. I want to start by showing my ancestry and who I am. So I am a member of the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians. We're a very small tribe from northern Los Angeles County, so parts of the San Fernando Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, going up into the mountains towards Gorman and towards Palmdale and Lancaster. I get my tribal ancestry, my indigenous ancestry, from my father's side of my family. So this is my father right here. When he was a young man, he was in the Marines in World War II in Saipan and Okinawa. This is my father later on in life. And I have some family pictures here to share with you. My grandmother and grandfather. So that's my grandmother and grandfather right there. They were both born in the late 1890s. My grandmother, Vera Ortega Salazar, was born in 1898. This is my grandmother right here at her christening. Like many California tribal people, my grandparents were good Catholics, and that's because my tribal ancestors were brought to the San Fernando Mission starting in 1799. This gentleman right here is my great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega. And I say all the time that I would not be here if it wasn't for my great-grandfather, Antonio, because he was a very determined, strong-willed, hard-working, highly skilled worker. So my great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, was born in 1849 when California became a state. And for those of you that aren't aware, which there are many people, when California became a state, the official state policy was to exterminate all California Indians. They had a bounty system where if the early American settlers killed a California Indian and they scalped them and brought in the scalp, they were given a bounty. They killed them and chopped off their head, they were given a larger bounty. So my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother and his parents, my great-great-grandparents, survived one of the worst genocides in American history. And the family believes it's because both my great-great-grandparents and my great-great-grandparents were all very hard workers and highly skilled workers. So they were just worth more alive than they were dead. But the Tataviam tribe is a very small tribe because we were almost exterminated and almost became extinct. We were down to less than 100 by the late 1880s, probably about 40 or 50. So that's where I get my tribal ancestry. We also have Shumash. So the San Fernando Mission was unique in that they brought in from the south of the San Fernando Mission and in the San Fernando Valley and going towards Los Angeles, they brought in Gabrielito Tongva. And then from the west of the mission, they brought in Shumash. So we trace back to the village of Tapu, which is in Simi Valley. And then to the north, my Tataviam ancestors. My mom is Portuguese and English and various European ancestries. So I just did a talk with a storytelling project with USA Today it was about my indigenous roots, and that being also of European ancestry, of that typical American. On my mom's side, my mom's family immigrated from Portugal, actually the Azores, which are islands off of Portugal, and from England on my mom's father's side, my grandfather on my mom's side. But I've always identified as indigenous, and I'm a proud member of, like I said, the Fernandinho Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, and I'm on their Elders Council. For the last 25 years, I've focused a lot on traditional Chumash and Native American storytelling, and even prior to that, I've always been a storyteller. I always enjoyed when my pop would tell a story, and in the book I'm going to share with you in a moment, I tell a little story, and this happened probably hundreds of times. My pop would say, "Did I ever tell you the story about Joe Barron and I going deer hunting?" And I would go, "Yes, Pop, you've told me at least a dozen times that story." He goes, "Well, it was a warm spring summer day, and we were in the mountains east of Bakersfield." And he goes on to tell me the story again, and I enjoyed it the 13th time as much as I did the 12th time. So storytelling has always been a part of my life. In the early 70s, when I was a young man, I taught preschool. I was one of the few male preschool teachers in California, probably at that time. And one of the things that I enjoyed and got involved in teaching young people was that story time, sharing stories. And I've been recently approached by some people that are much more talented than I am, and we hope to make an animated version of our book, Tata the Tataviam Toi. And to show me what they were talking about, they sent me an animated version of Where the Wild Things Are, which is a wonderful children's book. And it was one of my favorites. I've read it to my daughter and son, and when I taught preschool at story time, Where the Wild Things Are was one of my favorite children's story. When before I get to my book, in the book is more than just a story of a toy bird, which I'm completely fascinated with. It also has some tribal history and explanations of how Mona Lewis, the illustrator, made the paints and for the illustrations and things like that. But at the core of the book is, as I mentioned earlier, my Fernandinho Tataviam tribe was that close to being extinct. During the mission period, half of California tribal people died during that 40, 50-year period of the mission period. And then after that, as I stated about my great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, one of the worst genocides in U.S. history happened here in California. And the California tribal population throughout all of California was almost extinct. By the end of the 1880s, our population was less than probably 5%. So most of my Tataviam language is lost. We are working with a linguist and trying to bring back as much as we can, and then we'll use a similar dialect. The Serrano tribe to our east, to the east of my Tataviam territory, spoke a similar language, so we're using a lot of their language, and some of the Tonga Gabrielino, which is also a very similar dialect. But there's very few Tataviam traditional myth and legend recorded out there. So what I've decided to do is I researched my tribal history, my tribal culture. How did they live? Who did they trade with? What were their religious beliefs? Were they clan people? Did they use animals as teachers? And I've started writing stories as close as I can to the way I believe my ancestors would have told stories. You know, how would have my fifth or sixth great grandparents on the Tataviam side told stories about the animals? Tata, the Tataviam Toi, is an original story, and we're currently working on our next book, which will be a creation story. The Tataviam people, like many of the tribes in Southern California, the Tonga Gabrielino, the Chumash, the Serrano, we are clan people. We have animals as symbols, animals as teachers. So we have the deer clan, the bear clan, the lizard clan, the spider clan, and we use animals as teachers. So one thing I've been involved with for over 25 years is what is called a Native American monitor or cultural resource consultant, which basically is simply put, we and I try and protect ancient village sites and ancient burial sites. So whenever they're building or doing any kind of excavation, maybe they're putting in a sewer line somewhere for a large development, or telephone and cable lines. And if they're doing any excavation, any digging near ancient village sites, I go there to monitor. And about 10 years ago, I was working on a site in Simi Valley near my village of Tapu, and it's a very large site, and it's highly contaminated. So they were taking soil samples all over this 2,800 acre site, but it's pretty pristine. There's very few buildings, and there's no hunting allowed. So the wildlife, the deer, the coyotes, mountain lions, and all the small creatures are in abundance. And I became fascinated with this small little bird, this little toey bird. They're a little bit bigger than a sparrow and a little bit smaller than a robin. They're pretty bland in their color. They're just kind of grayish, brownish a little bit, with a little bit of orangish on their backside, underneath their tail feathers, which they like to flick up and show you those little orangish, brownish orange feathers. And for some reason, and I believe it's a survival technique, they hop and run more than they fly, and they stay in the brush. So you very rarely see a toey out in the open, in the middle of a field. They're underneath the brush. And that's where all the seeds and bugs are. And as a last resort, they will fly. So if you get too close to them, or something, predator is getting close to them, they will fly. But I have never seen a toey flying much higher than 20, 30 feet off the ground. You know, they'll fly maybe into the branches of a tree. And they're just a fascinating little bird. And one thing I hope my book and my stories do is it inspires people, especially young people. Take your shoes off, walk on Mother Earth, and go sit underneath a tree. An oak tree is a great place, because oak trees provide shelter and food for more animals than any other tree. And just watch the animals, watch the hawks as they fly by, watch the little bugs and insects as they crawl around, and the lizards and small birds, the sparrows and the flycatchers and the robins and blue jays and woodpeckers. Just sit and watch them, because tribal people, that's what we've done. And we try and learn from them. How do they survive? What's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? Because we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. So that's my tribal history, and kind of an intro into the Tata the Tataviam Toi. Today I'm going to share with you my first book, Tata the Tataviam Toi. I'm very proud of it. It's an original story that I wrote, Alan Salazar, Puchu Yayak, which is Fast Runner, my tribal name. Illustrations are by Mona Lewis, who is here with me today. And Mona did all the illustrations that I'll talk about in a moment, and they're just beautiful. So I'm going to share with you Tata the Tataviam Toi. The book is dedicated to my pop and my tribal ancestors, and I hope to inspire the next generation of storytellers. This is a story of a young Tataviam Toi. Today we call them California Tois, but Tata was hatched long ago near the village of Painga, which is near modern-day Castaic Lake. The Tois are small birds that hop and run from chaparral bush to chaparral bush. They occasionally fly, but never very high or very far. So here's a map of Tataviam territory, and it's where Tata, this California Toi, was born. Once there was a young Tataviam Toi bird. His name was Tata. When Tata was young, his parents taught him how to hop and run from chaparral brush to chaparral brush, and where to find the best seeds and the juiciest bugs. Tata's parents also taught him how to fly. They told him over and over, Tata, never fly too high. Never fly above the trees. Why? Asked Tata. Tata's pop said, there are killer giant birds, hawks, eagles, and falcons. And they have sharp, sharp talons. And they're fast and strong, and they will eat you. Now, Tata was already 5 weeks old. And like most teenagers, he thought his parents were just trying to scare him. His parents seemed to be telling the truth, but like most teenagers, he wanted to see these giant killer birds with his own eyes. So one day he landed at the top of a coyote brush. He looked to the left, he looked to the right. He didn't see any killer hawks, falcons, or eagles. He saw nothing. So then Tata flew to the top of an elderberry tree, about 25 feet high. And when he got to the top of the elderberry tree, he looked to the left, he looked to the right, and he didn't see any killer hawks, falcons, or eagles. He saw nothing. So then he flew to the top of the grandfather oak tree, the largest tree where Tata lived, over 70 feet high. And he flew all the ways to the top. And he looked to his left, and he looked to his right, and he saw nothing. No killer hawks, falcons, or eagles. Well, just about then, Tata's friend, Juan the sparrow, flew up in the tree next to him. Juan asked, "What are you doing way up here, my friend?" And Tata explained to him about the giant killer birds his parents had warned him about, and that he wanted to see them for himself. Tata said, "I looked all around, but I don't see any killer birds." Just at that moment, Juan said, "Look up, my friend." And Tata did, and he looked up, and circling high above him was a giant red-tailed hawk with sharp, sharp talons. Just then, the hawk tucked his wings and dove down towards the two small birds. They hopped into the center of the tree for protection, and they were very scared, but the red-tailed hawk was not after the two small birds. He was diving for a rattlesnake. And he grabbed the rattlesnake with his powerful talons and flew off with that rattlesnake. Tata was scared and he said to his friend, that giant killer hawk just caught a rattlesnake, a rattlesnake. Holy moly, my parents were telling me the truth. Juan said, my parents told me the same thing. Maybe we should listen to him more closely. The two friends looked at each other and then they started to laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. But after seeing that giant killer red-tailed hawk, the young birds did listen to their parents more closely. They just continued to act like they weren't listening to them and that they didn't believe them. And yes, even Tataviam Tois can roll their eyes. Teenagers are teenagers. Doesn't matter if you're a teenage Toi, a teenage Tataviam, or a teenager anywhere around the world. Now, there's many things about this book that we're extremely proud of. So if you can see here, as I said, the Tataviam were a very small tribe, and even within the indigenous communities within Southern California, there's very little known about the Tataviam people. So one of the things that Mona and I thought would be important to include in the book would be a little brief history, so that if you're a third grader or fourth grader or elementary school student or an elementary school teacher, we have about 4 or 5 pages of information about the Tataviam people. Facts, interesting facts like most of our villages were on south-facing slopes. So our tribe, neighboring tribe to the north is the Kitanuma. They live up by Tejon and in the mountains going into the San Joaquin Valley towards Bakersfield. And they called us Tataviam. That's where the name Tataviam came from. It's what our neighboring tribe to the north called us, and it means people facing the sun. And many of our villages were built on south-facing slopes in the foothills, so that we got that early morning sun even during the winter. Our villages were small villages. Like I said, we're a very small tribe. Before European contact, there was probably still only maybe about 4,000 of us, which is the smallest tribe. And to give you an example, there were probably about 3,000 to 4,000 Tataviam people. Our villages were around 50 to 100 people, so small villages. Our neighbors to the west, the Shumash, which my family also has Shumash ancestry, they were one of the largest tribes in California in a pre-European contact in the 15 and 1600s. They estimate that there was probably 30,000 Shumash people. So they were 10 times larger than the Taviam. The history talks about our houses. If you can see, they're much like Shumash houses. The Shumash word is ap. The Tataviam word is peach, and they're dome-shaped houses framed with willow. And so there's information about the Tataviam, how we lived, and games that we played, the early history of when we were brought to the San Fernando Mission, starting in 1797, when the San Fernando Mission was started. And then that early California history that I talk a little bit about. There's a lot of information. I mentioned games. So one of the things that we have in our book is the walnut dice game, and it explains how some of us play the walnut dice game, and games of chance like Beyond, which is a game where you hide either a real small stick or real small bones, and one will be black and one will be white, and you move the sticks from hand to hand, and then the other player has to choose which hand has the black stick. And if he picks this hand and has the white stick, well, they lose and they have to give him a stick. The dice game, you roll the walnut dice, and once again, we use colored sticks. So each player might have 6 or 10 sticks. And if I throw the dice and all 6 of them land the same way, say with the flat part of the dice. So you take a round dice and cut it in half. You have a flat half and then a rounded half. If all 6 of the dice land with a flat half side up, or the rounded side up, all 6, that's 2 points. And every one of your fellow opponents have to give you 2 of their sticks. And then if you roll the dice and you don't get any good combination, like if you get 4 and 2 and 5 and 1, that's nothing. Then the other person gets a chance to win some sticks. And you just keep rolling the dice and playing, and you sing songs and you laugh and you joke and share stories a little bit as you're playing the dice game. And it could go on all night. So our games were an important part. So we put the dice game in there. But as I said, the illustrations in the book, all those pictures I was showing you, this picture right here on the cover, were done by Mona Lewis, the beautiful woman that I introduced. And she's a very talented artist. And what we did was, she made all of the paints from natural ochres. For those of you that don't know what ochres are, those are soft stones that you can pound up into a powder. And lots of times you have to soak them in water and kind of get the sand to settle. And then you get that fine powder and you let it dry. And then you either mix pine pitch, the sap from a pine tree, the egg whites from an egg. Today you go online and you can buy various binders to mix with your powder paints. But we went out and we would go for hikes, and when we'd be driving, if we would see some soft stones, some ochres, we would stop and collect them. So almost all of the paints are from ochres that we collected into Taviam territory. The Santa Clara River runs through to Taviam territory to the Santa Clarita Valley, and the Santa Clarita Valley is kind of the center of Chumash territory. And so there's several creeks and streams that run into the Santa Clara River that feed it and bring water to it. And we would go for hikes and walk in these little creek beds and the river when it's dry, and we'd find little small brownish and yellowish and grayish stones that Mona would meticulously pound up and make into a powder, and then add a binder, either a sap of some kind. And we would take lots of times elderberry, which is a nice soft wood, willow, even sometimes the branches from sage, white sage. And she puts them in a tin. And in the book, she shows how to make the pigments and how to make black pigments from charcoal. So we made our own charcoal in our fireplace here at our condo. So all the things, all the paints are the way tribal people all around the world have made paints for thousands and thousands of years. When I did my talk about my indigenous ancestry, I talked about and finished the story sharing that I have English a little bit, not much. And when you look at me, I'm not going to convince too many people I'm English, but I do have a little bit of English. And I tell people I've always been a tea drinker my whole life. I don't like the smell of coffee. I don't like the taste of coffee. I've never drank it. I've always drank tea. And Earl Grey is my tea of choice. And when I went on my first big trip in my life, which was about 6 years ago, I went to Bath, England. And I was there for 2 weeks, and I did storytelling, much like what I just shared with you, and talks about the Taviam and Chumash tribes at a museum in Bath, England. I fell in love with Bath, England, and the Bath people. and my English roots, I think, felt like they were at home. When I came back just a couple months ago, I started researching my English ancestry. And lo and behold, as I'm tracing back my English ancestry, that I get on my grandfather, my mom's dad, who I knew almost nothing about. My mom and her father did not get along. So I saw my grandfather, my mom's dad, one time when I was about 11 years old. We went to visit. So I knew very little about my English ancestry, my grandfather. And then tracing back the Kendall side of my ancestry, and then when it traced back to the East Coast, they were Randalls. The Randall family had married into the family. We traced the Randall family back to England, and lo and behold, my 10th great grandfather on my mother's side, my 10th great grandfather in the 1600s, was the mayor of Bath, England. And it made me realize what a small world it is. So then I started researching the English people. And I've said this for years. We are all tribal people. So those of you that listen to this story and my little talk, if you're Tonka, Serrano, Chumash, Yokets, Pomo, Apache, Navajo, Dene, Hopi, we know we're tribal people, but so are the English, so are the Irish, so are the Italians, Asian people, African people. We're all tribal people. We all come from tribal cultures. And I trace back, when were the English living more of a tribal, hunting and gathering and doing rock art, painting in caves? And it was 3,000 years ago. So my tribal ancestors, my Tataviam ancestors, were living a tribal life 300 years ago. My English ancestors were living a tribal life 3,000-4,000 years ago. And what's fascinating to show you how we're all connected. My Chumash ancestry, there's Chumash villages on our islands off our coast: Anacapa, Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa, San Miguel. But 8,000 years ago, those 4 islands were one large island. Scientists named it Santa Rosa, and it was one large island. And our coastline was about 3 to 5 miles farther out. And then 8,000 years ago on the west coast here, the ocean waters started to warm, and the ocean waters raised up, and our coastline moved back to where it was, and it took several hundred years, almost 1,000 years. And the coastline moved back to where it is today. And that one large island became 4 islands. And they're all about 5, 6, 7 miles apart. So those 5, 6 miles between those islands used to be valleys on that one large island. England, the island of England, where there's Scotland and Ireland, was attached to Europe. And around 10,000 years ago, when the waters warmed in Europe and Asia, the ocean waters raised, creating the British Isles. So that connection is something that's just completely fascinating to me. Let me get back to the book. Another one of the parts of the book is Mona shows and describes how to draw a toy. So you can draw your own toy step by step, and you can either use natural pigments if you want. And then at the end of the book, we have some pages to color. It's Tata the Tataviam Toy, but it's much more than just a tribal story, and it's something that we're extremely proud of. And if I may plug our book, and hopefully when this shows, maybe someone can type it in, but it's sunspritehandwork.com. And that's our website where you can order the book. And I hope that I'm invited back so that we hope by the end of this summer that we've finished our creation story, the Jataviam creation story. And I'll give you a little tease on our creation story. I base my Jataviam creation story on the fact that we are a clan tribe. We have the bear clan, we have the eagle clan, we have the deer clan, the coyote clan. And we use animals as teachers. So I believe that the Jataviam people were created by the animals. The animals were here first. Thousands and thousands of years ago, there was no people in California or even in Southern California. 20,000 years ago, we were under ice. And when that ice started to melt and it got warm enough, the first colonizers of Southern California were the animals, the bugs, the insects, the birds, the mammals, the fish. And they colonized and lived here. And they did very little damage. And they all needed each other to survive. The little birds need those bugs to eat and survive. And then the second colonization of Southern California were the tribal people, the Chumash, the Jataviam, the Tonka Gabrielino, the Serrano, Kirinuma, the Yokas, the Batalaba. There's dozens and dozens of tribes throughout Senyo, Kumeyaay. There's dozens of tribes in Southern California, and we were the second colonizers. And we changed the lay of the land a little bit, but for the most part, we lived in harmony with the land. And the third colonizers were the Spanish and Mexican, and they left a little bit bigger footprint, started damming up the rivers and diverting the water to grow their crops. The tribes that I mentioned, we farmed the natural resources, so there's no reason for us to dam the rivers. We let the rivers flow the way they naturally did. We let all the creeks flow to the rivers. We left the lakes the way they were. And then the fourth colonizer were the Americans. And they changed the land dramatically. The Spanish, the Mexican, and the Americans all introduced a lot of invasive plants, cattle and livestock, which affected the other animals, the deer, all the animals, the bears, the mountain lions, the coyotes, the wolves, and they dramatically changed. They killed all of the grizzly bears. There used to be hundreds of thousands of grizzly bears in California. They killed all the wolves. There used to be hundreds of thousands of wolves. So their impact was much more dramatic. And my hope is that you enjoyed the story, that inspires you to become a storyteller, to write your stories. Start with your family story. Then I inspire you to go out into nature and sit and watch and learn from the animals. Which animals do you admire? Which ones fascinate you? For me, it was the Toei. The Toei just fascinated me. And to inspire you to help bring back and protect our environment and Mother Earth. Plant some trees. We have removed millions, not thousands, millions and millions of oak trees. So I encourage you to learn stories, tell stories, protect the earth, plant some trees, buy my book. But I hope you enjoyed the book and the stories, and that you find some more books and stories to read and learn and to share. And if you ever have the opportunity to hear a storyteller tell stories, native storytellers, if you ever have the opportunity to hear a native storyteller tell stories about bear or coyote or eagle or raven, that's a wonderful opportunity. Listen very intently, learn those stories, and then take those stories and tell them to your kids. And hopefully they'll tell them to their kids and their kids and their kids. And storytelling will live on and on. It's a very important part of all cultures for all tribal people. So thank you.
stalking shooting. I'm a keeper by trade. When I retailed to France, Portugal, Spain, Ireland, sailed all around the Hebrides here. Came in by chance, really, the shelter. By chance, really, the shelter. Snails we get a lot of, yeah. Had the opportunity, I was working out, not far from here, you can almost see it, deer stalking, back in the 80s. Fort William is through there. Potatoes.
Non-experts did it, and then experts so they do it
special because Rusty felt special because they just knew that I felt special because they felt special because